Um, I think that we need to study very carefully, and right now we are being forced to study it more because of the current circumstances, and politically the ability to speak being carved is actually allowing at least me to find these new stories out. Otherwise, I was completely, besotted by my reality and my time.
Yeah.
That's my
So
take on it.
you had adapted Tasher Desh the way you had created Gandur Mundu, your graphic novel. And Gandur Mundu, while it is largely a contemporary story, but these references also in Sarnath sir's work, though like apart from Barnauls and all, uh, this is a kind of a quest for an anchor of sorts, that who are we really inside and who are we supposed to be now, is something that has been a big driving force for me to, first Doshu and now the Meghnad Badh adaptation, to go back again and again to 19th century Kolkata and Bengal Renaissance, which irreversibly changed not just Bengal but largely a lot of British India. And if I were to ask Sarnath sir and you, both of you, like, what is this quest? Why do we need to look for an anchor, and why is that anchor so important? Why is it so important to be rooted to a certain identity in order to be local or global? Sarnath sir, would you like to go first?
Uh, I was wondering, before I answer that question, are we also allowed to interact with like what?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So I would answer your question about the anchor, but I just thought that you had opened up a very important point, and that cannot be ignored, and cannot be like just sort of, we can't just like walk through it, like because what he's talking about is a particular time where it was absolutely uh, it was a very fertile time for imagination, and it was all happening within very hostile circumstances. And I would like to take reference to two texts that I think is going to just illustrate what Q is. At least to myself, I would use what just Q just said. One of them is called Olik Manush, and by Said Mustafa Siraj, and the other one
Yes.
is a much more recent book by Richard Joshi called The Great Eastern Hotel, which
Oh.
talks about this firmament of like of Bengal, which is sort of in Olik Manush. It talks about like basically a picaresque adventure of Islam in Bengal, and the kind of fight between the Farajis and the Hanafis, who are like sort of between two streams of and the occult landscape that was happening around, and the kind of the feminine aspects of Islam versus the more like scholarly and more like kind of Deobandi aspects of Islam coming together, and all happening in this sort of large landscape of Bengal in around Murshidabad area, and the understanding of landscape, conflict, humor, uh, religious mysticism, jinns, and take and the British coming in, enlightenment, the understanding of it, cosmopolitanism, because every now and then Siraj evokes Goethe or various philosophers, Baudelaire, Farsi philosophers. That level of like cosmopolitan is very hard to kind of even imagine in the current kind of writing, unless it's sort of it is either affected by the need to be cosmopolitan. But that kind of seemed to be. Let me know, Q, if you disagree with me. And I also sort of look at the work of like people from the
No,
other side.
so far I'm with you completely. Yeah, exactly. That was
Yeah,
also. Yeah.
I mean, even if you look at the works of Akhtarul Zaman Ilyas,
Oh,
Chile,
yeah. Oh,
fantastic work of Political Imagination, which is a book of politics without politics,
And
humor.
also a reimagining of how a book should be written. I mean, in terms of
Yeah,
structure, and
yeah.
it's
Structural, form,
structure
work with
is
form. And
like,
work with form was such a huge thing back then. And I find it very hard to believe how we are living right now in a time where people seem to think that that's a foreign thing.
Mm,
yes, it's a
You know,
deconstruction. I mean, hello, we have had it
we can
earlier.
say we are not. We were always non-linear, and our storytelling was always in this kind of very fluid form,
mm.
with
Amen.
change. You know,
You know
um,
how history, mythology, folklore, magic, they moved in, and of course, then later on in our lives, we discovered, or early in our lives, we discovered Richard Kapuscinski, and we saw works of like where he wrote political works which are like fairy tale, like Shah of Shah or Emperor, which is on Haile Selassie. It's part myth, part journalism, part mythology. So I just like what Q is saying. It was all there magically. It was all there. It was
it
like
was all
very
there.
much part of our,
Strangely, yeah,
yeah, it was very much part of what Q and I, our generation, grew up with. And it was never felt
yeah.
alien or transplanted by some kind of an external. There's no nationalism around it. It was
Yeah,
ours, as was many other, as was all the sort of, as was Celine, as was Dostoevsky, as everybody else. So we did. What I've noticed recently, at least among my students, is that there's a tendency of like this feeling of inventing things and reinventing the wheel. Meaning, often what happens, because of like because we failed as a generation to kind of have a create a continuum between that form of literature to the current sort of writing. We have like singularly failed to create that sort of bridge. Most people who produce work, or has a sort of creative, they think that they're doing it for the first time, which is great. I mean, everything is avant-garde. I'm doing it for the first time, and this is amazing, and I'm like the big. But there's also a tragedy behind that. What is happening is generations are finishing within like 5 or 6 years. So within that 5 or 6 years, whoever is relevant is your influence. Your influences doesn't go beyond those 5 years before or after, which is like we're creating these very lonely generations. We were lucky because of the boomers. I think we are Generation X, where we were somehow in touch with like the boomers as well. And I've had bosses and lovers who are millennials. Um, so it seemed like I had like a larger world to draw from. But the worlds that people are drawing from currently, tragically, is becoming shorter and shorter, which means like
Yeah.
completely forgotten that whole world that we already had. That's a tragedy.
yeah. I mean, I just remembered, like, because you mentioned while you both grew up. So when I got my hands on my older cousins' books, and these Soviet illustrated books that used to come in Bangla, and you also mentioned the role of magic. That is a very important part. Like, it's not all about, like, the occult element was so intrinsic in how we understood everything around us, and
Yep.
how it is. I don't want to say it's got a bad name or anything like that, but how it has been misappropriated, and it's now a form of a shame that our occult lineage or heritage is something that we don't talk about. I mean, it's irrational, or it's
It's
backdated.
one of our heritage. I won't say it is the heritage. Occult
No, no, of
exists,
course, like
but
history, sociology, of course, the whole literary like oeuvre that's since Chorjapod to what's happening now. I mean, all of it, but also the occult bit was very intrinsic, which is completely, or rather mostly, absent right now. So that's why I just spoke about that. I mean, yeah. Q, would you
what
like
is
to add
I mean,
relevant
anything?
about
it is
needing to
quite
anchor. Sorry.
like Vibhuti Bhushaner Tarana Tantrik, or
Yes.
other writings of Vibhuti Bhushan, where he talks about this being a botanist,
Hmm.
being a being a bureaucrat.
Yes.
His he had very succinctly put down the factors that led to the literate Bengali being influenced, or for that matter, the whole fucking country. You know, everyone was keenly aware of the fact that there was this complex pluralistic wisdom that existed in this kind of magic realm. This magic realm was possible to achieve very easily because it was accessible, because everyone sort of kind of would practice it, and storytellers most often than not. So, and Vibhuti Bhushan did as well. So, I think that he's a very interesting character to see because he's one very super rational being, supposed, I mean, known to be a rationalist at the same time, like super into the occult. No, actually, the word occult is maybe, you guys know a better word for it. These are all pagan practices which are beyond rationality. Rash,
Yes, yes. And the
so
whole
it's like
naturalism
a
aspect.
non-binary sort of understanding of nature and being, and and there were thousands of these
Perhaps
systems
uncanny is a
in
better word.
parallel. Huh?
Uncanny, or there's a German word called unheimlich, which means
Yeah,
not within, like what happens in home, not homely, outside the realm of understood
Yeah,
reality.
yeah,
correct. That's what it is. This understood reality is a fiction of rationalism. It's 500 years fucking old. And it's supposed to be everything right now. And everything is mapped to it. Everything is measured to that. And therefore, like the metric system, we've gotten stuck with
yeah,
that bad.
yeah. Like
I saw
I was
echoes
just
of, I saw
sorry.
echoes of your work, Shulakhan. Sorry to interrupt. The way you use color and the way you use form and the way you sort of work within certain paradigms that had existed, that had pre-existed you, and you kind of look at it, and you kind of not only, I feel that you re-enchant these worlds, and in that sense you are an anchor into a world which we are at the danger of like losing. And somehow I feel like somewhere there's an abhas, there's a sensibility, an ancient sensibility that comes in your work.
Thank you so much. Wow, it really made my day. I mean,
That
uh,
is very true. Ancient sensibility.
Yeah, which is very modern. The approach is very modern.
Yeah.
It's not like, it's not shabiki, but I'm just saying that it has an echo of a very vast unknown past, sort of a, yeah.
Yeah,
wow. I mean,
I must add to this something that came to my mind immediately because Shabekita bolle because my mind never goes into that direction. So I am thinking immediately about who are the most stylish beings on Earth. Vampires, right? They're
oh
always super stylish because they're
yes,
ancient and they know the best of all the fucking decades, and they're combining the style of Prince and fucking Martin Luther King, and that's a fucking vampire, ancient wisdom.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love
So
vampires.
Well, the rich metaphoric world that Q derives. I have been a big follower of his work and also his micro interventions over the years, which I moving from very large format to kind of more personal and strangely quieter works, which might not look quiet, but has a quieter approach. I find some of these manifestations of like uh, I find definitely those sort of it's almost like an expansion of harking back to a forms. I think your work, I feel, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, is also informed. I mean, you're a modernist. You're very much like a established modernist avant-garde filmmaker. But that avant-garde is rooted to a lot of metaphors that are all kind of inside you. Kilbil Koche. Those metaphors also come from like a long line of reading. It doesn't like sort of wake up feeling a genius and like
Oh,
something.
no. Yeah, I mean, how your information is being you are simply regurgitating whatever information you have.
But
Uh,
also real, making it alive again through your
yeah,
own.
yeah. So retelling, it's like the though the term DJ is now a sad term. Uh,
Retelling history.
However, like I do believe that the idea of jockeying started because there was a very clear understanding of the black community in America. That's it. That there was a there was a drop in terms of how music production was happening and how the corporations had taken over the music industry by then, and true musicians could not really work and get anywhere. And that is the time that the Grandmaster Flash came up with the idea of mixing music and making new things. And I have always thought that that's what we actually do. I mean, all of us actually do that. We are applying
Yes.
ourselves cells in that time and space with that vibe, and we are mixing different things that we know already that exist,
Yeah,
have existed forever, because nothing is new and everything is. Therefore,
A
you know,
text is a tissue of quotations.
yeah,
I also like the example you started the conversation with that. There's this sort of future orientedness. We are like sort of trying to optimize ourselves for a future without a hope. It's like a
yeah,
situation where the future is becoming like a rumble of cacophonic, uh, unjust, a cacophonic world. And he said something very interesting. He said that somewhere down the line you have to look back. Now, does that mean like looking back in some kind of a nostalgic approach, looking back that मुझे हमारा वो दिल्ली वापस कर दो वो दरख्ते वो like this purity stuff like that, or we are talking about like forms that we had like sort of not properly understood, or like have to be understood in a different time. And that's where
yeah,
your text, Shulabhana's text, becomes very important, because I could sense that the idea of the river, for example, that you river as a metaphor, and these four ladies in the river, and losing them within that landscape. And I thought it was very touching. It was, and the use of color, because I see a lot of color
yeah.
at the background as well. So clearly you have an understanding
Yes.
of color which I don't.
Yeah,
And
no color, no publisher. So, like, thank you very much, I will say. So,
I'm
yeah.
very envious of people who know how to use color, and because it's balance,
So
it's
am
interesting.
I.
Yeah,
Actually, see, the next generation is like equipped with color. I've struggled using color, man. So,
yeah. Color has
Sudo,
always been
you're on the right path.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. On that note, I am going to bring in our next two guests. Sarnath sir, you told me that you're gonna like not be able to stay for the entirety of the duration. So, if you allow me, this is my goodbye. Thank you for being here for Doshu, and it was a wonderful conversation. Q, please do not go anywhere. We
Yeah, but
have
I have to also run in a bit, but I will
yeah,
be
yeah,
here for a bit more.
I'll
yeah.
stick
You
around
are
for another
you're
10
here for a
minutes.
bit, like one more segment. And just before you leave, Sarnath sir, the next two panelists, I'll introduce them. You can say hi, and then I'm gonna.
I'll stick around for another 5-10 minutes, and then
Oh,
I'll
cool, 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 cool.
quietly
So,
move away. Sorry for that. Apologies.
yeah, yeah, please, no problem. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Devi Ganguly. She is art virtuoso, working around not just India, but all across the world, and versatile actor Rahul Dev Bose. And both of them are my college friends. Rahul has been with me for both my colleges and Q. Rahul and I were classmates with Onu Broto, who is the
Oh,
lead of
Right.
your
Yeah.
Gandu, of course, which is, by the way, the first rap film of India, unlike what certain cultural appropriators would like to, preach. um, that set aside, I'm gonna open up a debate between Q, Devi, and Rahul. You guys are mics are working, right? Like you guys didn't say hi, so I'm like just wondering.
Yeah. Hi. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, and of course, everybody here knows who Sarnath Banerjee is. I mean, great inspiration and much, much, much greater graphic novelist and artist. So, the topic of the debate, we'll go in the order: first Q, then Devi, and then Rahul. Okay, so the topic is, should we not use erudite language and folk art in comics so that we do not alienate the mainstream reader? Each speaker gets 4 minutes. And if you are ready, Q, I am going to start the stopwatch. Uh, Ready?
erudite language and
Folk art, so that we do
focus.
not, I'm going to repeat the topic again. Should we not use erudite language and folk art in comics so that we do not alienate the mainstream reader? Q, you ready? Okay, and your time starts now.
Yes. So the language is critical. Language is loud here and brutal and direct and easy. Um, I have always been a proponent of um, or a champion supporter of easy language and talking in clear terms, in whatever metaphorical terms, but use language that everyone can understand. Folk art, on the other hand, I'm not so sure about because folk art is mainstream. However, folk art has lost its sort of touch with uh, today because it is lagging behind the mobile phone. So I think there could be a very interesting spin on this and a very nice threesome between folk art, um, street language, and the audience. If we can spin the web in a way that the story that we are telling resonates with them and the way that we understand the world is not the way that we want them to understand, our audience to understand. This is something that I'm telling myself every day these days, because as Sarnath mentioned some time back, while you guys were not there, Rahul and Devi, uh, that the present generation is in a sort of a crisis of information. Though everything is available, nothing is, and they don't know where to look. And because respect as a culture is dead, and therefore learning from others has become a really difficult thing for the youth. In this time, therefore, speaking in common parlance and using whatever imagery that actually they and that brings me to the last point that I will end with is that what imagery actually excites anyone these days, it's themselves. And Devi is working on this quite closely, I know. So maybe she can throw some light on this.
Um, like to take
Am
up
I on
from
time?
where, huh?
Yeah, yeah,
What's going?
you finished 1.5 minute pehle. So Devi, you can go now. Yeah, just and yeah, start.
Yeah. So, I think like with taking from what Q said and Sanat said before and everything, firstly, literature itself is like erudite. Like we can't forget the fact that whatever we read, the entire world doesn't read. Okay, so uh, and with respect to folk art, it's, I think, what is a more uh, people's visual language than the what we are making actually, because what we are making is actually very close knit, niche, and it goes to a certain kind of people. So I don't like, if you have to make comics or material, or whatever you're making, graphic novel, it should have the elements of uh, uh, language, of both visual and narrative language, that goes out to people directly. So I mean, of course, like my work is separate because I'm cocooned in a different shell. Like I've cocooned myself, three, four, million times to create what I'm making. But in general, if I was to make a book, or if I was to make something that I want a reader to buy, like it's that tactile, that it's I'm somebody is buying and taking it back, they must be able to fully relate to it, not just by the virtue of language, but also by the virtue of what they're seeing. So folk art that way actually is uh, is also very localized. So I don't think like a lot of people who are within the folk communities have a lot of exposure to folk art in India, at least. Like it's not something that is there on everybody's hand or people have access to. So like it should be a mix, like if it's specific to communities, or if it's specific to like it's reproducing folk art in a way that it reaches out to more people, then it can use folk art. And with respect to language, I think language should always be very, like it should not have a, firstly, any piece of literature should not be didactic, as language is also can sometimes be. So you like, oh, I'm writing in very like very heavy literature language, like, and nobody can read it, like whether it's in Bangla, it's Ingreji, whatever local languages that we have also. If it's very like it's written in very complex, the narrative can be complex, but the language use can be like simple, and more like spoken language, more like uh lang than parole, like more like spoken language. Yeah, is what I think. I don't know. People can talk. I'm like speaking like it's like a it's a jam session. I don't want to do jam.
No, but because you mentioned about how language, so I will not use the word didactic, but if you have read Anthony
You
Burgess,
can't now, as we just spoke. You can't.
what?
Okay. Before you go any further, Shulo
Hmm.
and people,
Yeah.
I will give you. Please tell me if this constitutes rethinking, reimagining folk art.
Just 1 minute, let me maximize it. Oh, yes, that is the Odd Rickshaw from Odd Space by Q. That is amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
Amazing.
It's definitely contemporary folk. Like if you, yeah, for sure.
It is. It is taking from the same shit that they do. I mean, everywhere people are utilizing their like pimping their vehicles in
Yeah.
every village and in their way, and the choice of the vehicle then becomes important. The form remains the same. So I mean, one quick addition to the folk art, because what is folk art right now? It's definitely not Pottochitro. It is rickshaw writing. It is, whatever writing and art that we see on the roads in Bengal, everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the
I've
language
watched.
of folk changes also, right? Like it's like no, what we thought as folk and has been like registered as folk also changes. So I mean, it definitely needs to be. It's because it's localized. We think that even totos are now like in like major cities, like, you know, like it's just there everywhere. It's not just in like smaller parts, like it's there in major cities. So like this Potochitro and like whatever the more localized versions of these practices is not um, the only form of folk. So yeah.
Yeah, and I also would like to s- like how quiche has reclaimed folk. Now Porto Chitro is on a t-shirt, it's on a coaster, it's everywhere. I mean, but my question was more about the very classical way in which, again, classical and folk, maybe it's a very it's a misnomer, or it's a wrong term to use together, but how you use the folk art form to create a contemporary narrative, and that's what current folk artists are also doing. I mean, like, there are Portochitro on Ayla Cyclone and mobile phone, and things like that, not just mythological tales. So would you like to talk a little bit more on that, or should Rahul address this? I mean, Rahul, your mic is
Mhm.
off.
I mean, I can talk about it a
Sorry
little
about
bit
that.
because I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so yeah, I mean, the thing is that like folk, the moment you like make use a word like folk, you actually are talking about something that is local, right? Like that's what you mean, right? Like I'm just like trying to clarify this because the thing is that there has been a lot of appropriation forever
It's
with respect to this. Yeah,
Yeah, I meant local, and like, again,
yeah,
folk art bolte, I don't only mean only the
yeah,
recognized folk arts, like not just Worldly or Potachitra or Madhubani, but even like the ones that we don't hear or see very often, or people don't talk about. But if you go to a certain very obscure territory by chance, and okay, so this is a great example. Actually, I was in Goa. I was meeting Q, and Q suddenly saw in the hotel where I was staying, there were some DVDs on a certain political leader. Let's not talk about that person and make stupid people famous. But Q was really shocked that, oh, this is this very indigenous alternative video film industry that is creating this apparent comedic satires on a certain politician that they don't like. So that also qualifies as folk art for me, by the way. So it was a like a larger canvas that I was talking about, because when I am using certain elements of Madhubani or Worldly or Pottochitro or Bengal School of Art in Doshu, it does not stay exactly in the same classical manner, the same the way these lineages have practiced. So it was I was talking more about that. So
yeah, yeah. So basically, the word has been like misappropriated. It's just been like taken over and like used in a very canonical way. But actually, like what you
yeah,
mean is art that is not like fully recognized. It's just there everywhere. So underground is a part of it. A lot of stuff that is not seen regularly, like art that is not you know sold in systems and white cubes is a part of it. Like people on the street, whatever they're doing is a part of it. Like even like graffitis or all this kind of other stuff also comes within the folk narrative, because the folk narrative is not anymore I would say a rural narrative. That's what these guys have been trying to like all like make, right? Like how folk is Potachitro or Worldly, or it's not developed enough. They've been trying to like put it in that discourse basically, or that category of like, oh, this is folk art, this is not. So for sure, I mean, that's the only way you reach out to the masses. Like you have to be your language, your visual language has to be so close and so um, open that it runs further away from what the system is trying to do, like establish this narrative as a narrative, as a a narrative that is boxed. Your language has to be outside that. Like, it has to capture what people are connecting to more than what has been already said, for sure, is what I think.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That was yeah. I quite agree with what you just said. Okay, so Rahul, finally, uh, I'm gonna repeat the topic once again, and you can share your thoughts on it. Should we not use erudite language and folk art in comics so that we do not alienate the mainstream reader?
With
And
regards
here,
to erudite,
yeah,
oops,
start.
did
Yeah.
I jump the gun? Okay, can we
No, no,
start now,
it's
right?
okay. Yeah, yeah, please.
With regards to erudite language, in one word, yes. And with regards to folk art, I think it's a lot more complicated than that. Because I
Yes.
believe that we are living in a world where the parameters by which we define something are really constantly evolving and at an electric pace. So, like, even erudite as a word to describe certain words in language. I mean, because you have access to so much information now, and particularly in terms of whether you call it reels or videos or whatever, you are being exposed to a lot of stuff. I mean, Shashi Tharoor has made erudite language quite cool in certain ways. I think people are looking up a lot of stuff. So I don't know. Maybe language itself is sort of evolving in a lot of ways. So might want to make it easier, but I think the word that we are all grasping at, we need to repackage a lot of things to make it more mass appealing of sorts. That's what I feel as a very, very layman, thinker. And I've done it. I mean, uh, I've done television, so I've had access to scripts where I have gone through uh, a huge number of volume of dialogues, and there have been words which I felt would not be taken to very nicely by my audience. Like they would think for about 5 minutes to understand what it meant. And we've had to change those words. So I think over a period of time, making language easier or more relatable, as everyone has put out, is the key to making it more mass appealing. So that has always been the case, I believe. And now it's like moving at a faster rate because things are changing. I think taking from something which you said, we are in a world with regards to information where we are taking a lot of things in and actually taking nothing in. So, like to paraphrase, I would say we're in a world of information overload where we have too much shoved in our faces all the time by virtue of the screens that we use. And we do not want to think anymore. There's too much to think about, and we just want to not think and make things easier. So yeah, maybe making language more relatable. I mean, there's a bunch of terms which I don't understand now, uh, starting from things about relationships, soft landings, and whatnot, which I never really knew much about, but I have to learn now. So you make it more relatable, more in tune with how people think, how people look at it. And with regards to folk art, I believe you have to repackage it. And that's the word which I think most people use nowadays. You have to make it more appealing because we're in a world of dopamine hits more than anything else. I mean, it's not about what you understand and almost just relate to, because there's a lot of stuff out there that you relate to. It's about what gives you the most dopamine rush. So you see great colors and a great font, and it does give you a rush, or you see a visual that really sets you tripping. So I don't know if I am being well, I'm getting the point across, but I think the point I feel is to repackage everything in such a way so that it does appeal to an audience. So the requirement is definitely there that you have to make it uh, simpler, for the lack of a better term. So yeah, maybe yeah, you have to get rid of erudite words, but not get rid of folk art because folk art does appeal to the masses still. You just have to repackage it in a way where people will like it more. I think I sounded like very dumb, but I think that's
No,
as simple as
look,
I
but
could put it
I
across.
wanted to ask you, like, I think because we both had SRC as our professor, and we
Oh
all
my
got
goodness.
passed around a copy of A Clockwork Orange. Uh, what
Yeah.
if the erudite language or not so easy sounding language, okay, is the
Hmm.
style? I mean, then
Yeah, so that's where
it's like I care a fuck what the audience takes. Like if I have invested this much amount of time and emotion in expressing a certain thing, um
hmm.
I do not want somebody to skim over. I want a immersive reader. I don't want the mass. What
Yeah, but
happens
Sulo,
that? Yeah,
that's the whole
no, no,
point of the
this is
question, that
question.
whether you make it for mass appeal, right? So
Yeah,
if you want to express yourself to an audience that relates to your linguistic philosophy, then yeah, by all means. I mean, we still belong to a generation where we did library work, we did read through a number of books, where we did enjoy reading a book. And yeah, I mean, if you want to appeal to someone like me, I would want to go through a page, give it a pause, think about it, and then go to the next page. But there are a lot of people who are like, I can't even sit through a page. So for them, it's difficult. But if you do want your own tribe to like, or rather understand what you've written or relate to what you've written, then of course you don't want to hold back on using the full extent of your ability to express yourself. Did I get what you're saying right?
yeah. I mean, it's just a question. I mean, yeah. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this debate session. I am now going to bring in our next set of guests, and thank you, all of you, for being here. And I'm going to get them on board one by one. We have my Mumbai city sketch buddy, graphic novelist, and Dr. Alok Madhusudan Joshi. And hi, Alok.
Hello, am I audible?
Hi. Yes, you are very much audible. Hi.
Thank God.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello, Q.
That's
Hi, Rahul. Hi, Devi.
Hi, hi, hi.
Alok has written this amazing graphic novel called One Phone Call. It's somewhere here, and he is an amazing painter. And before I do more tarif of you, Alok, let me usher in our next guest. Uh, he is an author. He is a queer academic. He is English literature academic, and he takes classes in many colleges in West Bengal and all across India. And I was his favorite trespasser of Judith Butler's gender trouble classes. So immense pleasure to introduce Niladri R. Chatterjee. Hi, sir.
Hi to everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay,
Hi.
so now I am going to uh, put Q, Devi, and Rahul on backstage, and
Thank you
let
so
us.
much. Lovely to be here. And happy
It's
birthday
nice
again.
seeing you. Happy birthday to Doshru.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
Happy
That's
birthday to those two. Amazing.
Happy birthday.
Bye.
bye bye. Yeah,
Bye-bye.
I'll just yeah. Uh, Alok got yeah. Wait, yeah. Okay, so hi, thank you for being here, and it means the world that two of you very special people are here celebrating Doshu's 5th birthday.
Happy
Uh,
birthday.
thank you, thank you, thank you,
Happy
thank you,
birthday.
thank you, sir, thank you, sir. And so it's been my journey with both of you have been different, in the sense, yes, Niladri sir, you have taught me so many things, and Alok, you have also taught me so many things, but in very different disciplines. But when we come to our debate topics, we are going to have two debates. uh, we'll see how much of these interests intersect or run parallel. So
Oh,
the first topic of the first debate topic. Here it goes. Are graphic novels like Doshhu effective tools for queer education, or do they trivialize history for entertainment? You both have 6 minutes each. Niladri sir, we will go with you first. If you are ready, I am going to start the stopwatch. Ready?
Yes, yes, I'm ready. So I frankly, I'm not quite sure if I've understood the question, because the question seems to be, there seem to be two different elements in that question. One is that, is it an effective tool for queer expression, or and there's this one, and then the other thing is about history. So I'm not quite sure whether both of them can be clubbed into one question, because easier to deal with. So therefore, what I would want to do is first start with your question about whether queer graphic fiction is a good way to raise awareness about queerness, and of course my answer is obvious, is that it is of course absolutely a very effective tool, and there was this one year in which my course, New Gender Studies, it was not taught by me entirely. It was, so we did a bit of co-teaching. So I
Sir, your
taught
camera is
one
off.
half. Sorry?
So your camera is off.
No, my camera is on. Maybe it's due to the poor connection, but my camera is very much on.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, no, it's very much on. So there was this one year in which I did co-teaching of my New Gender Studies course. It was taught by a colleague of mine, and he was doing his PhD then on graphic fiction. And so when I asked him to do a part of the course for that particular year, he included two graphic novels in the syllabus. I distinctly remember one was Kari by, of course, Amrita Patil, and the other was Fun Home. So therefore, there were two graphic novels that he included, and as far as I remember, the students received it quite well. So therefore, I think that every single medium that is available, all of it can be used to raise awareness regarding the queer life, and that's what it is. As far as the question of history is concerned, that is equally important. And of course, very important work has been done by people like Ruth Vanita, Salim Kidwai. Before that, there were people like Geeti Thadani, who did some pretty groundbreaking work. So therefore, I don't think that they are opposed to each other. I think there are many, many occasions on which they actually complement each other. So therefore, you can have graphic fiction in which there are sort of historical elements. So therefore, Doshhu being a pretty good example of that. So I think that it is important for us to use graphic fiction as a platform to increase queer visibility. And of course, I think it is very important for us to appropriate history, to basically use history in a way in which it has not been used, basically to queer history. That I think is very important. And I'm very glad that there are people who are doing it right now.
Sir, that was amazing, sir. And you finished way before time. If you want, you can add.
No, maybe I'll come back later. I usually don't want to overstay my welcome, so I try to use less time that I'm given.
Okay, so
I'm very un-Bengali in that way.
uh, Okay, sir. So, but we have another topic, so we will come back to you.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Alok, I'm gonna repeat the topic once more for you, and then you can start. So, uh, are graphic novels like Doshhu effective tools for queer education, or do they trivialize history for entertainment? And you can start now.
Okay, so first of all, I should say that Doshu just blew me away because this is the
Oh,
first time
thank
I
you so
had.
much.
See, I mean, we have spoken about this before, but reading Doshu, it felt like the entirety of the vibrant background and culture and everything that represents Bengal, which I had seen in, just my brief stay in Kolkata. It was everything come to life, kind of. Okay, and this just makes it part of a much older tradition, actually. So I'm a very big mainstream comics consumer who just happens to make independent comics. So if I'm looking at this historically, even as far as the if you go as far as the 50s in American comics, American mainstream comics, there have been a lot of potentially queer material which were censored like crazy. I mean, if you have heard of the Senate hearings initiated by Frederick Wertham, I mean, there are so many shades to Dr. Frederick Wertham. This is one of them, actually. He felt that everything implied some sort of sexuality. Like the most famous quote is that, like, if you have a superhero like Batman, Batman's not a superhero, but okay, well, for the sake of argument, if you have somebody like Batman being with a younger character who is also male, like Robin, so basically, you are implying them having a homosexual relationship. So this was just one of the big reaches that he kind of made, and that, amongst other things, led to the comics code of authority. So under the comics code of authority, there were so many things which were taboo, and queer narratives were just part of that. So similarly, at around the same time, you have people who were independent creators, like you have Howard Cruz, his very good autobiography, which is called Stuck Rubber Baby, and we also talked about Fun Home, right? Sir only talked about Fun Home by Alison Bechdel, who also, dikes to essential dikes to watch out for. So over the years, I think we have come far ahead of that. While you are right in saying that these are monochrome, I mean, even one of the other books that I really favor, that's a comparatively recent book by this writer called Judd Winnick. He was on a reality show, and the book in question is called Pedro and Me. It's about his friendship with this person called Pedro Zamora,
Mm.
and how
Yeah.
he eventually passed away, and his life with him. So I think that's been the most affecting. And if you would look at the trajectory of Jadvinick's career, subsequently he's introduced other queer characters, and he's done that to much critical acclaim. In mainstream comics, to have critical acclaim, to handle subjects tastefully, and to have editors who are allowing you to handle these subjects with the gravitas that they need, it's a very big thing, actually. So long ago we had the comics code of authority, and now you have people like John Constantine Hellblazer, who is openly bi. You have Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, who are in a same-sex relationship on and off, and you also have other people like some recently, like they are in the limelight more recently. You have Jonathan Kent, who used to be the most recent Superman. You have Robin Tim Drake, and you also have a lot of other DC Comics characters who are currently, uh, navigating all parts of the spectrum. So that, I think that does a lot towards relatability. I think that does a lot towards education, and that also eventually, I think that helps in perception as a whole. So yes, of course, graphic narratives, they do not trivialize history. They are a very important part of history. I mean, as part of all mediums, all progressive mediums have always been anti-establishment. I think graphic narrative is just one more of
Mm.
one more addition to the
Yeah,
gamut of media available, and Doshu is part of that proud tradition, of
yeah,
course.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Uh, Vivekananda sir, I have made you lurk around a bit before I start your session because screen
No,
was
that's
looking
fine.
khali. Vivekananda sir is the Chief Creative Officer of Buckermax, India's first graphic novel startup, and also an amazing graphic novelist. His book is here, Tales of Orion. Amazing, funny, amazing comic about his son Orion, and yeah, all of the characters are lions, lion cub, lion, and lioness. Very nice. Uh, Coming back to Niladri sir, in a world dominated by monochrome debut comics, Vivekananda sir, if you want, you can also join in this debate. In a world dominated by monochrome debut comics, primarily which is an ask of publishers, but also sometimes by design, how important is color for amplifying the shades of queer? Niladri,
Mm.
so go with you.
Yeah. Yes. It's interesting, isn't it, that you phrase this question in this way, and so it reminds me of the objection that a lot of people have towards the Pride Walk. So a lot of people, they believe that the flamboyance and the color and the costumes and the rather outre behavior and demeanor that is exhibited during the Pride Walk, there are a lot of people who believe that is not in good taste, that is probably not proper, that does not show the queerness in a good light. And I always find that objection absolutely hysterically funny, because I believe that we will have to then define what is proper, what is good taste, what is decent. Because if you actually look at the way in which the terms proper, decent, good taste have been framed, they have basically been framed in such a way as to deny one of the most important parts of our lives, mainly our sexuality. So therefore, anything that celebrates sexuality is automatically then decidedly, classed as, is that probably necessary? So therefore, the public has always had a problem with flamboyance. The public has always, I mean, not all, not everybody, but people who consider themselves to be sophisticated, they have always had a problem with flamboyance. And so therefore, I'm all for flamboyance. I'm all for color. And of course, there is, queerness is color. Queerness is color, because what heteronormativity does is that it basically imposes a black and white. So therefore, the heteronormativity or patriarchy, it thrives on binaries. So therefore, you're either this or you're that. So therefore, there is a certain kind of black and whiteness that patriarchy is constantly trying
Sir,
to
I
impose on us.
also claim black, white, and gray for queer. Huh? It's not Jagir of heteronormative anymore. So, sir, please continue.
Exactly.
It's ours.
Exactly. So exactly. So what you have done is you have queered the black and white as well. You have queered black and white. So therefore, and of course, Amrita Patil has done that before you, but then you've also brought in color. So I think what the publishers are worried about is that, oh my God, it is color. So therefore, it is going to cost us more to produce the book. We want to keep the cost of production low. So therefore, can we make it tasteful? So therefore, when they say tasteful, they actually mean cheap. But that is something which, we will probably have to call out. No, thank you. I don't want tasteful. I want fantastic, loud, fluorescent tastelessness. And maybe that is something that we should be all gunning for. So So yes, I think that color is absolutely essential. And when I started to read your graphic fiction, that is the first thing that sort of caught my attention. Is the absolutely and when I use the term lurid, I don't use it in a derogatory way. I use it in a celebratory way. That there was this extraordinary vibrancy of color, which I thought was very, very striking. At some point, Sulakshana, I thought that I'll have to stop reading your graphic novel and reach for my sunglasses. I thought that the eyes perhaps need sunglasses to read your novel because the pages were so fantastically bright.
I suggest
But
red tinted glasses, sir.
yes. So I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I loved your use of blue. I loved your use of red. I loved your use of green. And I loved the curly cues that you constantly did. So the volutes and the curly cues were absolutely brilliant. So why not? And I think that let's claim color for all that it's worth.
Amen. Alok, your turn.
Yes.
You can, yes.
Okay. So, if when we talk about physics, when you talk about optics, why do you see colors? You have white light. That's basically when you reflect it through some sort of a prism, or how do you see a rainbow? You see a rainbow because the light gets reflected through the water droplets. So why do you see color? Where does all color come from? Most of the colors come from white light. They come from something that's normal, and then suddenly when they burst out, everything is nothing is the way you saw it before. So that way, when you have a tradition of independent material being black and white. But when you talk about color, when we talk about color in interpreting anything, so I don't see color as it being something that already exists. I see color as it being something filtered through my vision. So something that can be black and white, I can see it in yellow, I can see it in red, I can see it in any color I want. So when you talk about a narrative which has color, it automatically becomes so much more than what it was in black and white. And of course, sir had a point about black and white being binary. That's not something that I had thought about before this. But yes, the way color is used often to represent a lot of things. I mean, I myself use color to represent moods. So whenever you use color in a way that is conveying some greater thing, I mean, I don't think Doshhu would have worked this well if it would have been a monochromic narrative. I think color absolutely elevates the appearance, the acceptability, the visibility, and the most importantly, the message.
Sulakshana, you're muted. Your audio is muted.
Sorry, I was saying ki thank you, Alok. Thank you, sir, for pointing that out. When you even posted about Doshhu a couple of months back and the panels that you selected, I was very glad that it got conveyed that each panel belonged to that color paletting of like golap is pink and bromor is purple and Polash is orange and Kajol is blue, and the way you got that, I mean, which kind of goes back to what you said, that it contains so much information. And while the topic was on shades of queer, this is the kind of a fluid, or rather in flux nature of shades of queer, that anything and everything is queer. And it
Of
is
course.
actually not normal to have a normative structure की ये colored हो गया ना तो बस ये हेटेरोनॉर्मेटिव हो गया एंड सिर्फ रेनबो के जो 7 रंग है वो रह के तुम लोग खुश रहो, क्योंकि क्वेयर मैरिज का लीगलिटी तो मिल नहीं रहा है अभी भी हमारे देश में. सो it is a very interesting point that you discuss, that the amount of information overload, the sheer madness of the resplendence of colors bring in, which is very reminiscent of Amruta Patil. I think the design or the intention was that you cannot have this book without color. So no color,
Absolutely.
publishers, goodbye, as I told you earlier also. Uh, Vivekananda sir, yes. Hi,
Hi, hi, hi.
thank you for joining us for Doshu's birthday.
Yeah,
And
happy birthday.
thank you, sir. I'm gonna hold up the book once more, because I just can't get enough of showing this off. I'm so proud of this. And I met Vivekananda sir this year at Kolkata's first Comic Con, and it was in the Bucker Max stall that Doshu got curated into the University of Illinois, because Mara Thacker was sitting at his stall. And I asked Vivekananda sir ki okay, I like Sumit sir's the Itch You Can't Scratch, and I like Tales of Odin. Which one should I buy? Very modestly, he told me, buy my book. So that's how I started reading his work, and it's an amazing book. And because we spoke about color, uh, largely most of the book is in black, white, gray, and orange, sometimes in neon greens, sometimes in this lovely turquoise-ish light blue, but mostly in
Yeah,
orange and black and gray and white, and anthropomorphic, like all characters are lion characters.
yeah.
Uh, would you like to also talk about how color, because you very deliberately designed your book with this specific palette, how does it work to amplify certain the shades of a certain agenda of the creator?
Okay, so I mean, honestly, I have a very conservative use of color. It goes back to my childhood where I used to, draw and paint and everything. And I remember every birthday, anybody's birthday, I was told that Coco, my dark name is Coco. So Coco, make a card for XYZ, and I has to make the card, and everyone has to praise that card. It's so good. Then I remember once I made a birthday card, and the paint went all over. It was a mess, right? And everyone was like, "Oh ho, this is spoiled. This is like totally kharab ho gaya ye." And I was so like as a kid, I was so impressionable and so emotional. I got so put off. I was, I think, around 7 years old. By that negative feedback, I just stopped using color in my work. I used to draw and sketch a lot. And what happened is, because of that, my sense of using light became very good. Using contrast, using shadows, and all that. I just completely stopped using color. I was very scared of color. And later, when in college, there's another senior of mine. His name is Alan Shaw. So he took out the fear of color from me, because he said that. So I told him, Alan, I'm really scared of using color. So he's like, okay, do one thing. Don't use color on white. Take an orange paper and start using color on that. So I started using green on orange, like purple and blue and turquoise, and that slowly by removing white and by just completely working with color on color, I sort of got over that fear. But even now, I'm like, I mean, your book is like a total trip. It's not a sane book. It's like being on some kind of a substance. I would never be able to do something
I,
like that.
I, I wrote the book sober, huh? By the way,
So,
completely sober. I mean, I was, yeah. I don't want to elaborate on that, but
so I mean, I use color much more, I would say, conventionally. I use it for mood, like a particular story, what mood it connotes to me. I mean, that's the way I use color. And I normally don't uh, combine many colors together. And so it's more conservative views. And I use a lot of lighting. Like, if you see all my characters, they sort of colored in one side. The whole thing is not colored, because I use a lot of light and shadow and contrast to give my characters volume. So that's how my art has developed. But yeah, I mean, that's what my personal this thing towards color is. Though I appreciate really vibrant forms of color, in my own work, I use it very um, measuredly.
okay, yeah. Okay, so we are towards our last segment. This is uh, a question to anybody can pick this up. Is it more radical to make a dacoit story funny, or to preserve the narrative's brutal realism is a better option? Who would like to go first? I think Vivekanand sir, because you are damn funny. I mean, you should address this question about funny stories first, and then we can go to Niladri sir and then Alok. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so brutal. I mean, it completely depends on the person who is telling the story. Firstly, obviously, both ways of telling, does different things. For example, if you're doing a brutalist, realistic kind of way, you are more focusing on the sort of emotional turmoil of the character and what made that character took that particular path or whatever. But when it comes to humor, I find humor is it comes in when you're reflecting, not when you're just feeling or going through. It's when it's more philosophical in nature,
Mm.
right? And it is when you reflect on something, that's when the humor comes in. So it has its own role in storytelling. So it's a very powerful role, and I think it's much more I would say vast in its capability than just the brutalist kind of a depiction of what is happening. I think it's a fantastic combination if you can have the brutal thing offset with maybe a satire or a like a sort of humorous reflection on what is happening. It sort of combines those things. There's something that I read about. I'm an animator more than I've just made one comic book. I'm primarily an animation filmmaker for like 25 odd years. And there's a book on animation called Understanding Animation by Paul Wells. So he says a very interesting thing there is like comedy or humor, it is actually extreme tragedy which happens to somebody else, right? It is, I mean, I don't know if animals laugh, like if do they have a sense of humor or not. But laughter is related to something is a reaction to something which is, I would say, a very violent thing, or something which is, it could be violence, it could be shame, it could be anything. So for example, a very simplistic example is the very classic example. You see a man, there's a banana peel, he slips on the banana peel and falls. And what happens? You burst out laughing. And you burst out laughing not because, I mean, that the poor guy is hurt, but why do you burst out laughing is because it wasn't you, right? So humor has probably evolved out of some kind of a self-preservation, fight or flight kind of a response, really. So, so when you talk about, what is, so I mean, I would say it goes hand in hand with your brutalist storytelling as well. So yeah, I mean that's about it. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's super. Yeah, I learned a lot of things from that. Niladri sir.
Yeah, I think that there is this phrase that is very often used for the Brits, but we in India, I don't know how capable we are of that, and the phrase is self-deprecating humor. So, the best kind of humor is the one where you are laughing at yourself, because laughing at others is an act of stupidity. Laughing at yourself is an act of intelligence. So, therefore, when only smart people get to laugh at themselves, idiots laugh at others. That is the simple rule by which I go.
Right.
Also, you must understand that, humor as a defense mechanism, this has been used down the ages. And perhaps the most sort of striking example of it was, in the Nazi concentration camps, when you had all these Jews who knew very well that they were destined to die. But even in that gloom, somebody would say something, and they would all burst out laughing, knowing very well that they are about to die in the next couple of hours. Also, if you look at that extraordinary film, Wonderful Life,
Yeah.
which is basically, the Roberto Benigni one,
Yeah.
in which he uses humor, but I mean, the subject is unbearably tragic. So, therefore, it is only about the sophistication and the intelligence with which humor is used. So
Right.
therefore, it is very, very easy to laugh at others. It's very difficult to laugh at oneself. Something that I use a lot in my classes and with my students, because the way I look, people may find me fairly intimidating. And then whenever the students want a selfie with me, and whenever I have to stand with the students while they are adjusting the camera, I tell them, wait, 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 please let me check, is my hair all right? And that always does the trick, because the students, they don't know how to deal with it, because they're like, I don't know whether anybody has ever mentioned it to you, but you have none. But it it sort of makes people comfortable. So I'm extremely happy to poke fun at myself. And the kind of fiction that I like, the kind of stand-up comedy that I like, is one that is self-deprecating. So yes, humor is good when directed to oneself. Humor is bad when it is directed to others.
Okay. 100% agree. 100% agree. Alok, go.
I find humor a lot more complicated than writing anything else. I mean, but I would personally have seen a lot of tragedies written well. I've not seen a lot of humor done well. So humor, when done right, is it's like a weapon actually. If you can do humor right, there's nothing that tops it. You have jokes that are funny to a certain section of society. You have jokes that are funny to a larger section of society, but you seldom have jokes that are funny to almost everybody. So of course, as sir said, that the wisdom is in laughing at oneself, but then laughing at other people is again a tremendous release. It may not be good for the other person, but it definitely makes you feel better. I mean, I know that's not a great thing, but we take what we can get.
So it is
We
Yeah,
take
that
what
is
we can get.
patriarchy. That is patriarchy. Patriarchy laughs at others. So yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So on that, you have this really great decade-long running comic, that decades long running comic rather. It's called Gru. It's written by this brilliant person called Sergio Aragone, and since he writes, he generally doesn't write in English. You have his companion called Mark Ivanier, who does the English material. So when you read Groove for the first time, you will be laughing like crazy. You will be laughing at, you will be laughing. First of all, the person you will be laughing at is Groove. Then in a while you will be laughing at the creators. Then you will be laughing at society. But when you read it a few times later, when you read it again, when you read it yet again, and yes, this is a book that you can revisit, and each reading will tell you something else, and you will cry. You will start crying. That's the effect. That's basically humor done extremely well. Humor done extremely well is always going to be tragedy.
Yeah. Wow. Ah, I'm gonna move to the next topic. Again, open to all three. Uh, can unlikely superhero conventions coexist with a historically grounded dark narrative, or are they inherently incompatible? Uh, Alok, you go first.
Okay. Can you repeat that, please?
Uh, can unlikely superhero conventions,
Okay.
जैसे कि टेल्स ऑफ ओडिन में ओडिन इज वेरी मच एन अनलाइकली सुपर हीरो और फलाज मुसलमान कॉमिक्स फला इज
Of course, Fala. Yes.
yes, he can't join us, he's down with fever, he just texted me.
Oh, okay.
Ouch, ouch. That's
I
so
heard
bad.
his
I
voice,
hope
so
he.
he's not, he's genuinely down with fever. But
I hope he
God
gets
bless
well
you,
soon.
Allah, we miss you. Musalman is a very unlikely superhero. It breaks the superhero conventions in many ways. So, just like that, can unlikely superhero conventions coexist with a historically grounded dark narrative, or are they inherently incompatible?
Of course they can. As I said, like superhero comics. I mean, most of the comics that I have read until now have been superhero comics. I mean, that's one of the things I grew up with, and again, that's what we used to get. That's what we used to get in India. So the most, what you would call them? You would call them probably cult classics. So the best cult classics, best cult classic comics. I mean, DC would have second tier, third tier comics. DC Comics would have uh, titles other than Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman, right? There'll be second tier, there'll be third tier comics which won't be popular at all. There'll be unconventional narratives, and they are so unconventional that they get to do anything they want. Everybody will
Ram
be looking at
is
Superman.
doing some great work. Like he's picking up very unlikely superhero or super villain Marvel DC characters, and he's doing a lot of good work about
Of
that.
course, Resurrection Man, which just ran recently, his latest work that has a great pedigree. I mean, Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning first created the character sometime in the 90s, and they did a very long run. And what happened is that they were able to get away with anything because nobody is watching them. Everybody is watching Superman and Batman. So the
Yes,
things that you can get away
I,
with in second tier or third tier comics are crazy. I mean, there's this comic book called Hitman. That's Garth Ennis, and that's very typical dark humor. Of course, it's got a lot of humor. All Garth Ennis comics have a lot of humor. So that's very typical dark humor. And towards the end, as you know, as you start it ran, I think, around 60 issues maybe plus tie-ins. So like around 30-40 issues in, it starts getting really dark. But no matter how dark it gets, Garth Ennis never loses the humor. So yes, you have unconventional superhero comics going really dark, and I think this gentleman called Garth Ennis is the best person to who I have seen writing these sort of comics. Like you have his Punisher, you have his Hitman, and like as you said, Ramvi is doing some great work, and again, the another reason why he is doing some great work and why that is more significant is that it's very difficult to play in somebody else's playhouse. Somebody came and created those characters long ago. I mean, like New Gods was created in the 70s by Jack Kirby. So creating a comic that is respectful to DC Comics, that's respectful to Jack Kirby, and that's respectful to today's society who has progressed far beyond Kirby. That's amazing. That's really amazing.
Okay. Thanks, Alok. Niladri sir, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I think my question would be what is unconventional and how unconventional? Because you see, the thing is, there are a lot of people who claim to produce unconventional work, but if you subjected it to, a really close reading, you will find that, smuggled into the unconventionality are certain conventionalities. So therefore, and we people who do gender studies, we talk about something called deep structure, which means that, something that may look apparently feminist, but once you scratch the surface, you're going to find patriarchy lurking underneath. So therefore, my question to those who are actually going to talk about the unconventional superhero would be to say, exactly in what ways are they unconventional? Because you see, a man can be unconventional in the sense that, he could be wearing, boots with the lungi. And you might say, ooh, that is so unconventional. He might be wearing a tilak and he might be working the computer. Ooh, that is so unconventional. But then at the same time, he could be, demanding that his wife brings him tea. And his wife, cooks regular meals for him. So therefore, right. So therefore, what is apparently unconventional may not be really unconventional. So therefore, somebody like me who has been doing cultural studies for a few years, I take any, pose of unconventionality. I take it very, very seriously, and I subject it to a lot of examination, because who knows, lurking underneath the conventionality, unconventionality there may be. So therefore, a classic example of that would be the topic of gay marriage. So therefore, people may say, oh my God, isn't it radical? Two men getting married or two women getting married. And I find gay marriage desperately conventional. As somebody who is totally opposed to marriage in any form, shape, or color, whether it's black and white or rainbow, I am horrified that there are people who are willing to become each other's property. So therefore, so therefore, I would subject any claims of unconventionality to a pretty rigorous examination before I declare them to be truly unconventional.
Are the Doshhu characters, including Avni the Tigress, unlikely superheroes in your opinion, Niladri sir?
Well, they look unlikely. But it's the violence that sort of concerns me a little bit. In the sense that, I totally understand that violence sometimes makes a lot of emotional sense. But you see, violence is intrinsically patriarchal. So therefore, even when violence is being practiced for supposedly feminist ends, it is still supporting patriarchy unconsciously. So therefore, it may look very... So, if you take a film like Mardani, starring, who was it? I think Priyanka Chopra, I forget.
Mardani was Rani
Correct. So that was Rani Mukherjee. Absolutely right. So a lot of people said, oh my God, this is it. This is the feminist film that we all needed, a woman bashing up men. No, because, even when it doesn't really matter who is bashing up whom, but as long as somebody is getting bashed up and somebody is doing the bashing up, ultimately at the end of the day, it is patriarchy that's winning. So therefore, I would be very, very suspicious of any depiction of violence of any sort, because I would then wonder to what end? To what end? So therefore, is that violence creating, equality, or is it therefore reinforcing the narrative that ultimately violence is good? If you're a good person, then your violence is good violence. And you can use that same logic to justify, for example, capital punishment. So when the government
Right.
or when the court of law gives the order that somebody should be put to death, oh, that is a good killing. I'm not sure. So
Sir,
therefore, yeah.
yeah, I think there is a line in Doshu also, like thin line, that one, terrorist or freedom fighter, and it kind of emphasizes exactly what you are just talking about, that initially when the women start off they are not violent, but then they do become very very violent, and then how those shoe ends, and the job that they take up eventually in the end, so that journey, that graph is there very much. But I really want to ask you, Niladri sir, in your opinion, which predates what, violence is older or gender norms? It's a trick
Oh, no, no,
question.
no.
It's a
Yeah.
trick question.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a very, very short answer to that. Gender norms are violent.
Okay, that was a very violent answer. That yeah. Okay,
Gender
so
norms are violent because
yeah,
what you're doing when you're creating
Right.
gender norms is that you are actually creating difference where none exists. And creating this kind of an artificial difference is a violent act. So therefore,
yeah.
as long as you're going to have, two genders, three genders, four genders, 722 genders, it is all going to be violent. So therefore, if Ambedkar could talk about the annihilation of caste, I don't understand why we can't have the annihilation of gender.
Yes, thank you so much, thank you. Yeah, I've got it tattooed. Wait, I'm mixing up left and right. Yeah, I do not perform for gender, like college days ka tattoo, and that right under a Marilyn motive, the Andy Warhol Marilyn motive. But coming back to our discussion, Vivekananda sir. Yes.
There's just, I mean, a small story which came to me when you're talking about, gender norms. So in college, I was making a film, and I used to consider myself a feminist, right? And I made a long kind of a story, and I presented to my faculty. And what happened in that story was, I mean, it's a long, winded story. I'm not getting the details of the story, but essentially, the woman was working and taking care of and the husband in the end of the story sort of saves the day by doing the dishes and washing clothes and everything. And and I was very proud of myself कि यार मैंने तो बहुत अच्छा feminist story लिख दिया. And I went and showed my professor. So my professor said, yeah, very good, you've shown the husband wash the dishes, but at the end of the story you still made the husband the hero ना, because वो कपड़े धोए तो वो hero बन गया, right? So then it completely, oh my, so this is how
Yeah,
complex this
yeah.
these roles and these labels are. So anyway, I'll just go back to your question. You said about unlikely superhero conventions coexist with a historically grounded dark narrative, or are they inherently incompatible? So I mean, I would say actually it's a very good idea. It's we don't really have, I mean, an idea of, especially the time that you have based Doshu in. What would it be to live in that time, where I would say even the idea of India was in flux. It's a very interesting and I mean, nobody's done it, but it could be very interesting. Like, for example, um, Bruce Wayne could be a zamidar.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah,
You
he's
know,
completely
Of
a
he's a
course.
zamindar.
full zamidar kind of a character,
Who
and
goes to hunt tribal women in Polash's forest? Yeah,
yeah. So
totally.
I mean, very you can have, especially that time is very interesting because nobody. I mean, it's obviously not been documented, uh, equitably. It's a very thin veneer of a lens that we are seeing that time. Especially like even in your book, how you had mentioned how the Britishers were, like sort of uh, uh, going against all the dacoit family and the dacoit clans, right? Because after the Indian War of Independence, they figured, boss, these guys are going to really kick us out of the country if we don't control them. So they played a lot of politics to subjugate them. So these kind of stories, we don't know what was really happening. So it's a very good sort of opportunity to put a sort of a superhero kind of a very unconventional, because right now superhero has become wearing cape and underwear, and that's the conventional superhero, which unless you subvert it like how Musalman has done, it's no fun. So you need to do something. So so there's definitely good opportunity to base a superhero in a historically grounded like a dark tale. I think it's a good idea that nobody has really taken on. Doshu, to some extent, I would say, has done that.
Yeah, like my thing was dacoit. Superhero होता है तो नहीं होता है, मतलब हाँ है इंसान. They are flawed people, very flawed people who don't know violence is bad, although it's happening to
But
them.
everybody is a superhero according to me, so ठीक है.
Yes, which brings me कि आप कुछ बोलिए आलोक सर इस बारे में.
Of course, as I said before, I mean, this is basically what superhero comics are for. I mean,
Yeah.
when I said that superhero comics have always been challenging the traditional narrative, this goes long back. Even अगर आप traditionally देखते हैं, if you look at the DC comics and Marvel comics of the 70s, will continuously अब उस टाइम के जो प्रॉब्लम्स थे उनको चैलेंज कर रहे थे, उस टाइम के जो सुपर हीरोज थे वो, like
Yeah, the
you had
fact
you
that the same characters and like probably the same plot line, how it has evolved over the decades with different creators, different generations, different color palettes, different styles of storytelling, and how still some of these very so well, I am also going to go out on a limb and say ki if it is about a Batman setup, the unlikely superhero in Batman setup is who? Joker and Catwoman and Harley Quinn. Everybody except for Batman, even Inspector. But like, I think that is the beauty of a timeless piece of narrative. And yeah, and Tintin is a unlikely superhero in my opinion. I mean,
Right.
of
he
course.
is traveling he's going to the moon. He's going everywhere. I mean, only Tintin can go to India and find in Guy Pajama ki there is this fakir who is sitting on a nail ka sofa, and when he sits on a soft sofa, he's like, oh fuck, the sofa pricked me. So I think, yeah, I think the fact that
That reminds me of the time when I used to get ill drinking mineral water. Normal water is perfectly all right for me. So,
yeah, and yeah, I think you like fizzy drinks. You prefer fizzy drinks over normal water, even if you are gonna be dehydrated till you die. But yeah, that's another story completely.
those pesticides do great things to my system.
No, I choose different kind of poisons to kill myself, but that's okay. Okay, so on that note, thank you very much, all of you, for being here. I am gonna put
Pleased to be
you.
here.
Thank you so much. It meant a lot. And once again, I'm gonna hold up Doshu ka cover so that I love flaunting this cover and all. So happy birthday, Doshu! Thank you for being here for Doshu's birthday, and
Most
I'm
welcome for calling us.
thank
It
you so
was a
much.
pleasure. It was a pleasure.
Thank
Loved
you
it.
so much.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
meet you, Niladri and Alok also.
Yes, nice to
It was
meet.
good
Nice to
calling you.
Likewise,
meet both the panelists. Yes, and very nice to see you again, Sulakshana.
it was lovely, sir. It was lovely, Vivekanand.
Thank you. It was lovely
Right.
hearing your opinions as well. Very nice.
Okay, so I'm gonna put you guys on backstage, and I'm gonna finish off the last segment. So
I'll
yeah.
probably sign out because it's pretty late. So, but all the
Okay.
best.
Thank you. Bye, sir.
All right. Bye. Bye.
Okay, so I just realized that we lost out a couple of minutes when the live was supposed to commence, but somehow the streaming button was malfunctioning, so we started off a few minutes later. So I was basically talking about the journey of Doshu. It has been a deeply emotional and immersive journey of 3 years. First person who was there with me for the Doshut journey was my creative mother, Amruta Patil. Her books are here, and she was in France at that point of time, and I was in India, and across continents we used to talk to each other, share notes, and she used to guide me like only a creative mother can, incessantly answering all my questions: how to make the book better, how to go about the color paletting, the lettering, the narrative in general. Doshu is also dedicated to Amruta Patil, among other very dear women, Modhuja Mukherjee, Ananya Chakraborty, and Swati Biswas. Modhuja ma'am and Ananya ma'am were my college professors from JU and St. Xavier's, respectively, and Swati Biswas is my mom. So, Doshu is now part of Ashoka University MA curriculum. It has been curated into the University of Illinois. It's also part of the Small Press Fest, which is happening in October in the University of Illinois. And it has sold so many copies, which makes me very happy. It is available on Kindle, Amazon, Flipkart, and on an app called Foof, which is also created by my creative father, Q. And yeah, that's been a really long journey. I mean, I'm so happy that Doshu has reached where it has, and I'm going to share the links of the book launch videos, the ebook and the paperback. There are two separate videos in the description. I'll share the links. But now it is time to talk about the next book. And so, yeah, that's Noam Chomsky's On Palestine. May the genocide end in Palestine. I mean, no baby should die for no fault of theirs. Babies do not have any fault in somebody else's war. Coming back to the next book, so this is one of the primary characters, and as you can see, 10 heads. It is indeed Ravan, Valmiki's Ramayan's chief antagonist, and Michael Madhusudhan Dutt's epic poems, the first Bengali epic poem also, Meghnad Bodh Kabbo, so one of the chief protagonists. or the chief protagonist, although it is named Meghnad Bodh, the slaying of Meghnad. It is indeed Ravan who is the primary character in Michael's dense, romantic epic. My graphic novel adaptation of Meghnad Bodh Kabbo is called Chariot in the Clouds. Last year, I became runner-up in Penguin India's Perfect Pitch competition, pitching the manuscript of Chariot in the Clouds. But that manuscript has changed a lot over the course of this year. And it has been a very, for the lack of better term, transformative, occult, immersive, humbling experience. I set out to adapt Meghnad Bodh as Chariot in the Clouds just a month after Doshhu was released 5 years back. That I had a certain intention, of course, because given the current scenario in our country, Ravan skewed Ramayana definitely attracted me a lot. And also, Michael Madhusudhan Datta is, if not the, but one of the renegade voices of not just 19th century Bengal Renaissance, but of South Asia as well. So I started doing something. I mean, we had read excerpts of Meghnad Bodh as part of school curriculum, especially the part where Meghnad is slayed. We knew Michael Madhusudhan Datta's basic history, but to actually pick this up as a graphic novel adaptation came much later. And graphic novelist Saurabh Mohapatra, his amazing book Mumbai Confidential, I love it. It's in my Mumbai home. So I met Saurabh sir a couple of years back in Mumbai. He was visiting India. He lives in California. He was supposed to be part of the panel, but today he is in transit. He's traveling, so he could not join for network issues. But you are here with us in spirit, sort of, sir. Shout out to you. So we were having a conversation about Chariot in the Clouds, and it was at that point of time the manuscript was just the epic part, which is the Meghnad Bodh part. So he started asking me questions that what really pushed me to pick up this book to adapt. And then I started telling him certain stories. Most favorite. So Lower Circular Road Cemetery in central Calcutta is where Michael Madhusudhan Datta is buried, along with Orietta, his wife and companion. I used to spend a lot of time sitting quietly at Michael's grave for hours. And that time, just sitting there silently with nobody around, was the beginning of this intention that Meghnad Bodh Kabbo should be the thing that I should work on next. And Saurabh Mohapatra told me, why isn't all these stories in the book? And I was like, oh my God, he's right. So I started rewriting it. And by now, God knows how many drafts I have rewritten. Doshhu, by the way, was first draft publication. Just one draft and it was published. But Chariot in the Clouds, the way the book has turned out, I don't think I can hardly claim any credit of writing it. I think it wrote itself pretty much. It wrote itself, yeah. The intention that I was talking about, with which I initially picked up Meghnad Bodh, then sitting at the graveyard, then the Saurav Mahapatra meeting, and then many personal losses, losing many dear people from this physical realm. The book changed in ways that it has surprised me every moment, right up to when I finished lexiconing it. And now lexicon chapter is a chapter by itself. I mean, it's not like the book has ended and then there's a lexicon chapter. No. The lexicon chapter is very much part of the narrative and the most difficult chapter to write. I'm currently illustrating it. Again, so far, the journey is surprising me again at every turn. I'm getting emotional, but it's a very good thing to be emotional. Uh, I have this feeling that once I completely complete Chariot in the Clouds, I'll be very sad, because the experience, the journey of creating this book that it has given me, I don't want to barter that with anything else. None of the intentions with which this adaptation began are truly there anymore. It has gone beyond me, beyond my ego, beyond my identity. It has gone beyond the setting of Lanka or Kolkata or Mumbai, for that matter, in the book, I mean. But yeah, I mean, if I have to describe it, what is the most important element of Chariot in the Clouds? I think it has to be digressions. Yeah, I think the digressions are what that makes this book so immersive. It might test your patience sometimes. Where is the plot going? But again, in the book, I quote from Chariot, an epic isn't child's play. You learn the plot in the childhood. And when you are old enough, you learn to read the finer print. An epic isn't child's play. On that note, thank you all for joining us today. Yeah, Doshhu couldn't have had a happier birthday. Good night. May the genocide end in Palestine. Amen, inshallah. Om Tat Sat. See you.